Dr. Simone Price was no stranger to adversity. As the first black woman to work as a private investigator for the FBI, her journey to success was paved with challenges that most would find insurmountable. Born and raised in a small southern town, Simone had shown an uncanny knack for solving mysteries from a young age. By the time she was 12, she had already helped a neighbor find a lost heirloom and discovered who had been sabotaging her school's science fair projects. Her sharp intuition, paired with an unwavering determination, was her greatest asset. Her childhood, however, was not without its share of trials. Growing up, Simone faced systemic racism and blatant prejudice. She often had to fight twice as hard to prove her worth in school and later in college. Yet, these experiences only hardened her resolve. By the time she joined the FBI, she was not just a private investigator but one of their finest, with a reputation for cracking cases others deemed unsolvable. So when the FBI called her with an urgent assignment, Simone knew it was another opportunity to demonstrate her unmatched skills. The case was of national importance. A high-ranking official had gone missing under suspicious circumstances, and her expertise was needed immediately. The Bureau had arranged for a private jet to pick her up at 8 a.m. the following morning, dressed sharply in a navy pantsuit and carrying her ever-reliable briefcase. Simone arrived at the small private airport with plenty of time to spare. Her focus was on the task ahead, mentally piecing together the scraps of information she'd been given about the case. But as she approached the jet, she was stopped by the pilot, a tall, middle-aged white man with a crisp uniform and an air of arrogance. "You're not getting on this plane," he said flatly. Simone froze, thinking she had misheard. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "I don't fly black people," he said, his words dripping with disdain. "This must be a mistake. I've never had a black passenger before. It's against my morals and ethics. It's degrading." The words hit Simone like a punch to the gut. For a moment, she stood there, her mind reeling. She'd faced racism before, but never so blatantly and in such a professional setting. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Years of training had taught her how to remain composed under pressure. "This is not your decision to make," she replied coldly. "I was assigned this flight by the FBI. NW, step aside." The pilot crossed his arms, unmoving. Furious but determined, Simone pulled out her phone and made a call to her superior at the Bureau. Within minutes, the airport authorities and a high-ranking FBI official were on the scene. The pilot was forced to not only allow Simone to board but also issue a public apology. However, the incident delayed the flight until 1 p.m. As the jet finally took off, Simone's focus returned to the case, but the sting of the morning's encounter lingered. Later, as she settled into her seat, she decided to do a little investigation of her own. With her laptop and some discreet calls, she dug into the pilot's history. What she uncovered was both shocking and unsurprising. The pilot had a long-standing, unspoken rule of not being assigned black passengers. While it wasn't an official policy, it was known among staff that he would refuse to fly if such assignments came through. To avoid disruptions, others had acquiesced to his prejudice, ensuring that he never had to face a situation like this one. Until now, Simone's discovery fueled her resolve. She realized that her boarding this flight wasn't just about getting to her assignment, it was about paving the way for others. By standing her ground, she became the first person of color the pilot had flown, breaking an unspoken barrier that had been tolerated for far too long. Back at headquarters, the Bureau took swift action against the pilot. He was suspended and mandated to undergo weeks of diversity training. Initially resistant, the pilot eventually began to reflect on his actions and biases. By the time he returned to work, he had a newfound respect for all passengers, regardless of race. For Simone, the experience was a reminder of how far she had come and how far there was still to go. But she didn't let it deter her. By the time the jet landed, she was ready to tackle the case with the same tenacity that had brought her to this point. She knew her worth, and no amount of prejudice could diminish it. After solving the high-stakes case, Simone's thoughts kept returning to the pilot. She decided to follow up, not out of malice, but with curiosity about whether the mandated training had any real impact. To her surprise, she received a letter from the pilot several months later. In it, he expressed his apologies once again and explained how his perspective had shifted. He detailed the diversity training sessions and how they had challenged his preconceived notions. He had come to understand that his beliefs were not only wrong but also harmful. He ended the letter with a note of gratitude, thanking Simone for standing her ground and forcing him to confront his biases. Simone kept the letter as a reminder of the impact one moment of courage could have. She continued to excel in her role, solving some of the FBI's most challenging cases. But perhaps her greatest achievement wasn't the cases she cracked but the barriers she broke and the minds she changed along the way. Months later, Simone was called to speak at a bureau-wide diversity and inclusion conference. She hesitated initially, as she preferred her work to speak for itself. However, she recognized the importance of sharing her experience to inspire change within the organization. Her keynote address, titled "Breaking Barriers: The Power of Resilience and Courage," recounted her journey, the jet incident, and the progress that followed. As she stepped off the stage, she was approached by a young black woman who had recently joined the FBI. The woman's eyes were filled with admiration and hope. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Because of you, I believe I belong here." Simone smiled warmly. "You do belong here," she replied. "And remember, every step you take helps make the path smoother for those who come after us." Meanwhile, the pilot, now a staunch advocate for inclusivity, had become a vocal supporter of diversity within the aviation industry. He partnered with organizations that promoted equity and actively worked to dismantle the biases he once held. Together, Simone and the pilot became unlikely symbols of change, proving that even the most entrenched prejudices could be overcome with courage, education, and understanding. Simone's legacy extended far beyond her investigative triumphs. She had become a trailblazer not only in her field but also in the fight for equality, reminding everyone that progress often starts with one bold step. Thank you for joining us on this journey of resilience, courage, and change. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest content. We'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know. Your support helps us share stories that inspire and empower. See you in the next video.